All right, so we're ready to get going. Our objective now is to take our snowman and to give it a little character, put a face on it, give it a hat, and make it look like a real snowman. So to do that, we're actually going to add divs for the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the hat, the top part of the hat, and the rim of the hat. So let's go ahead and get started on that. We'll get started. We'll make sure, first of all, that our 700-1 branch is checked out, which it is. And we'll go ahead and we'll open it up. And we can see that we're currently, I know for a fact that we're in a split view, live and code. And the reason I know live is because design view does not give you radius views in design. So if I go code design, we see that we actually end up with the blocks. And I think for right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave those blocks in there, just so that we can see as we build and move on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a face to our snowman. And I'm going to copy and paste in some code and then we'll talk about it. But what's really important to understand is that we're going to put this face inside the head of the snowman, because we want it to contain, just like we put the snowman inside the snowman div, we want to contain the face inside of that as well. And so I'm going to paste some code in here and we'll talk about it in a minute. I'll paste it in and apply source formatting. Now what we've done is we've put in, right directly below the small head, we've put a div in, we nested it inside the small head. And then we gave it a class of face. And then inside the face, we've actually put in a div that we gave a class of eyes. And inside that div, we nested two more divs, which are the left and right eye. And we've given them both a class of eye. And then we've differentiated them by doing li and ri. This will allow us to control the eyes and keep them together at all times if we choose to move them around. We put a nose in here, and remember this is inside the face. We put a div in here and gave it a class of nose, and we put another div in and gave it a class of mouth. So at this point, what we can do is we can go and we can start working on our face. And right now we can see all that our face is. If we go to split code live, we can see that we can't even see our face at this point, which we'll be able to in a second. We're going to come up here and choose our style sheet, and we're going to actually go ahead and work on our face, and we're going to sneak it in there between head and body, our styles for our face. First thing that we're going to do for our face is we're actually going to give it a class of face. And what we're doing with our class of face is we're basically telling it that we want it to take up 50% of the width, the available width, which is that actual snowball that the face is sitting inside of. And any positioning that we do, we want it to be relative, meaning inside here, only go to where it's sitting. And we want it to have a height of 30 pixels, and then we want to have a margin of 40 pixels, and we want it to be auto up and down. So right now, if you look, top is, let's see here, margin top is 40, yes, auto left and right, sorry about that, because we want it to center into the face, and we want a margin on the top to push it down so that we can see it, and it centers itself nicely into the snowman's face. The next thing we want to do is we know that our eyes, nose, and mouth all share some common characteristics, meaning if we go out and we look, we know that they're all background black, they all have a border, they all have a radius, and so whenever we can, we'll just apply styles to all possible entities. And at this point, if you look, we're just stacking 4 divs on top of each other, and we're giving them a corner radius of 45 degrees, just like we're doing out here. We're giving them a common width and height, and we're setting the border and we're setting the background to them. What this does for us is now all we have to do is put in slight changes in our rules instead of having to go and style each one of these with all these characteristics. I'm telling the left eye to float left so that it actually goes over to the left of the face. And I'm going to tell the right eye, which is the div directly after it if you look. So we have left eye and right eye. They're on top of each other. And all we're doing by floating them is telling them to go left and right, to stay next to each other. You go as far right as you're allowed. You go as far left as you're allowed. That's exactly what's happening with the float. What determines how far they're allowed to go is right here, right? We have our face width is 50%. And if you look, they're floating out to about 50%. Next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll do, especially we know that we want the mouth and the nose to be in the center of the snowman's face, and we know that we don't want them floating up here with them. And so we're going to use something called clear both, which is saying clear the float right and clear the float left so that these guys don't try to float. And then when we say margin auto, what they're doing is they're putting equal margin on both sides, and everything else is coming from up here that's being applied to them from this common facial features. So let's go ahead and let's make the nose look like a nose. How do we do that? We push it down a little bit from the eyes up top here, and we stretch it out a little so that it has a height. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and take care of the mouth. And if you look, all we did is we carried off of these styles that we put up there, and we brought them down. We're essentially just adding to and overwriting the width, of course, but and then adding a little bit of margin to the top to push the face down. Styles are fun to play with, and they can be real tricky, and it really does just take practice and persistence sometimes to get them to do what it is that you want them to do. So we've accomplished the face. So let's go ahead and the next thing that we want to work on is our hat. We have to come back out and we're going to add 2 more divs. Our divs that we're going to add for the hat, we're going to again just sneak them inside the head because we want the hat to stay with the head. Clean it up, and you can see I've put these 2 divs, the hat itself and then the rim. So the hat itself is the actual top hat part, and then the rim is this actual part. So how are we going to make them work for us? Well, we remember they're inside the snowman, inside the small head, so that it's always important to remember what your position is, where you are, before you start working with whatever it is you're going to work with. With the hat, we're going to come in. We're going to go ahead and put the hat right underneath the head because the face is below the hat, and again, it's just logical. When I put the hat in, what you'll see is the background color is, of course, black, and the width is 80 pixels. So we're basically kind of going after a certain width there to maintain it. And then our height is 80 pixels as well. We put 15% on the top left and right radius of the div to give kind of that curved look to the hat on the top. And we've told it that we want it to be an absolute position. We could go with relative here, but absolute will ensure that it'll stay right there on top of the head all the time. And we'll just use that for now, and that may change in the future. What we've done is with the top, if we didn't give it absolute and relative, what we can see is it's going to sit on top of the head. We put it inside of the head. And because we put it inside of the head, the highest it can go is to the however high the head is. So by saying top minus 70, we allow it to go outside of the head div and sit up top there minus 70. We're shifting it to the left by 20, and the reason we're shifting it to the left by 20 is because it wants to sit to the left of the div that it's sitting in, and we actually want it offset. The last part, we need to go ahead and put the rim on the hat. And so if we come underneath the hat and we say rim, what we've done is we've filled in the background color. We've basically sandwiched it, right? By giving it a width of 120 and a height of 30, we essentially created this disc looking thing. And we've given it a border radius of 50% so that it's a perfect circle. And again, we had to absolute position it, and we put it on the top, so it's sitting at the top of the div at 70, so we actually kind of pushed it down a little bit. And then we're bringing it over to the left to align. So now if you look at it, you can see that the rim is there and the hat is there. While you're working on these things, it's really important that you play with the styles and try to figure out how it is they're doing what they're doing, why it is they're doing what they're doing. I'm going to clean my code while we talk. So the only way you can really understand styles is to actually play with them and get familiar with what they do and the effects they have on each other. We'll go out, we'll look at our source code one last time, we'll clean that up, hit apply, we'll save them both, and at this point we're going to close all of our files and go out and look at localhost. This is where we started, that is where we are, and we are in perfect position that we want to be. We're absolutely in line and perfect. And our only thing we have left to do now is go and do our commit. So let's go ahead, out to Git, do a Git status. We can see the files that have changed. We'll go ahead and do Git add because we want to add those changes to the branch that we're in, which is 700-1. And we added them. So let's do another Git status, and we can see that we're now in the staging area. And at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll do a git commit. And we'll say -m, and we'll put in our comment, added the Snowman face and hat divs along with their styles. Keep it short and sweet. And we'll commit that. So if we do a git status at this point, we have a clean tree and we're ready to move on to the next video and commit, merge our work into our master branch and push to production.